Hey, Scott Bresner here with T-Biz TV and my good friend Richard Greaves on our T-shirt report, episode 4. We're still doing this thing every week. Tuesday we shoot this thing. Richard's in Detroit. I'm in beautiful sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, having a good time. And in this episode, we're going to cover lots of good stuff. We're going to cover our rant a little bit about backing up and how people that don't back up their stuff and they want to complain that they've lost everything, we'll just put it on a backup. We're going to cover a little bit about Newman Roller and about how to calibrate your meter. We talked about it last episode. We're going to give you more details this episode. We're going to discuss some of the trade shows coming up, real quick, little trade show news, some talk about that. Talk about the support logs. Richard and I both get support calls, and one of the calls I get all on a regular basis is how to fix a crappy JPEG. And so I'm going to show you a little short video on that and some tips and stuff. We do have our rants and our raves. What's your rant going to be this episode?
Mostly I'm going to talk about dozens versus tens and my belief that we should be counting shirts in tens.
This sounds like metric versus inches, doesn't it? Kind of
well, you could be the judge.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Nobody can count in dozens. Nobody.
No, I know, and you're right about that. And we're going to talk about the dimensional weight. I think you have a rant about dimensional weight with UPS going to dimensional weight. Do some great book reviews. You have a couple books that you're you've been hooked on, which is the Ogilvy on advertising, and what else? What else do you have? The other one about his biography.
Well, Confessions of an Advertising Man from David Ogilvy, two terrific books that dealing with creative people, and everybody will get something out of it. They're very inspirational. And the technical book, Stencil Making Technical Fundamentals, is available from Eric Klein at Saudi.
It's going to be a fun show, so sit back, relax, have a good time. And this is Scott Bresner, who's growing his beard, and Richard is now. You said you shave once a month. And
first of the month. Get ready for Atlantic City.
That's what it is, and you look marvelous, by the way.
Look young, yeah. Look younger, I hope.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy the show, guys. Hey, you're a real trendsetter. You're wearing. I can't tell.
I watched the show last week. I watched the show last week, and olive drab was the color.
Yeah, that is cool.
I had to dig pretty deep into my work shirts for this shirt. Is more than 30 years old. I got this before I even moved to California in the mid-'90s.
Now that would be sold at Macy's. That would be sold at Macy's yesterday for $80.
Well, I think you can tell it's been customized here.
Go higher. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Well, they do that in those factories. They have a sander, that they sand that hole in the shirt. So this is as close as I could get. This is kind of what's it look like to you?
Looks brown? Very drab. It looks very drab.
It's my very Bob Marley, very weak, very subtle print. I'm not the guy that wants to wear a big. I don't know about you, but I don't like to wear big, heavy, gaudy prints. Now, I do them for customers, but I think who wears this stuff unless you're a race car guy or something? Anyway, I don't know. But see, I like a nice thin collar. You have that worn. That's a really good look. That's real trendy.
My friend John says that his dream job is to print black on olive drab green shirts in orders of 2 million at a time. That's the salesman's dream.
What kind of production could you get on that? I mean, if you were doing on an auto, I bet you could do over 1,000 an hour. Don't you think? I mean, just load it.
Anytime I ran really long runs, once you get up and running, if we weren't printing 600 to 800 an hour, I was unhappy.
Yeah, that'd be a clean deal. No flashing, just crank them out.
As I mentioned in the past, the great Angela Jones on a precision oval could load and take off 1,200 an hour and yell at the employees at the same time.
Was she a big girl or a small girl?
She was a fine woman, but naturally at 6 o'clock had to get home because she had her family to feed. So the hardest worker I've ever known, the great Angela Jones.
There must be a picture of her somewhere in some factory.
Oh, sure.
Probably so. Did I ever tell you my story about consulting? I did a prison consult where that's what they did, Army and Navy shirts. I mean, they had, I think, 4 automatics. Some prison in Jacksonville, Florida, Prison Industries or whatever it was called, they did woodworking and they built furniture, and I walk in to consult. I'm kind of going, why am I here? They do one-color prints. They wanted to do better stuff. But basically that was it. Convicts printing Army, Navy, for Edwards Air Force Base and stuff. So the story is I go to the screen room and I'm trying to help them make better screens that will last longer. And I say, show me how you do it. They coat a screen up and then they go to the sink and they dump the emulsion in the coater out down the drain. I go, what? I go, how much emulsion do you guys use? Oh, about 12 to 15 gallons a month. A month, and they do one-color prints. What do you mean? He says, I said, why'd you dump that away? He says, well, the supplier told me that it was no good. It's contaminated from the stuff on the screen. So once I coat the screen, the emulsion is contaminated. Throw it away. I said, well, who's your supplier? I'm not going to say who it was, but anyway, somebody thought, convicts. They'll never know anything. So that's my story about Army, and these guys did probably millions of Army and Navy shirts, like you're talking. They had the dream job, but they were just in the wrong location, you know.
I kind of helped the U.S. disciplinary barracks make their guidebook. I had a training class where two very lovely ladies, and I asked them where are you printing? And we're at the U.S. disciplinary barracks. We supervise the prisoners there, and we need to create a T-shirt printing guidebook. And so they scraped everything off of my Printwear magazine, Screen Printers Digest, guidebook, and they turned it into a very nice elementary training manual, which I'm sure they still use to this day.
You have a copy there? Now these are service guys that have either gone AWOL or this is.
Well, they're in the military.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There you have it. You
chock filled with no pictures.
You taught them a trade and no pictures.
That's sad, but they were very nice ladies.
I don't think people realize how much stuff is done in prisons like that, you know, which is fine because I get probably that letter once a month from a convict, and it usually has a weird address, and it's always, hey, I'm incarcerated for 10 years, and can you send me a how to print book? And I always send them a book, you know, because I figure if I can, you know, do them a trade. One guy got out and wanted to come meet me, wanted to come have lunch. I sent you the book. That was good. But, you know, he was my new best friend. So I wanted to ask him, what are you in for? What were you in for? I was a mass murderer. I was a serial murderer. Anyway, all right, enough of the BS. Hey, speaking of change, you changed. You're in a, what are you wearing? What are you wearing?
I told my friends at Twin City Tees that they sent me a T-shirt.
Oh, that is you're a whore. That is a blatant plug, right?
They sent me a T-shirt, and I said, I'll wear it at the next Netcast.
I love it.
And
I love it.
So I made a promise, and
$50, right? Just like that.
Then I forgot that I had to wear the olive drab shirt for this show.
No, that's good.
And that's what they do at the Oscars.
Hey, speaking of change, this last couple of weeks has been Adobe's 25th anniversary. And I remember when Photoshop came out, what a change. I mean, you remember going from, well, we have Arts and Letters, I think we used before. Maybe I'm not sure if they came out before Photoshop, but when Photoshop first came out, I remember my eyes glazing over thinking I could do all the things that take 2 or 3 camera shots in like 2 mouse clicks. It was, to me, it was revolutionary, you know. But so now I have to look it up. It was, well, the original guys were, who did we say? John and Thomas Knoll. You knew some of the more of the history than I did. Originally called Display, then called Image Pro, and this John, I guess, worked for Industrial Light and Magic. That tells you a lot. I read a book about those guys, how they had to find the budget to buy the first Mac at Industrial Light and Magic, so they could, whatever the guy's name was, he's a famous guy now, but he had to buy the first Mac, and he was assigned the job of learn how we can do all this on a computer and not do it with all the motion capture and stuff. So anyway.
Now, of course, that was 1990 that Photoshop came out, but Adobe started in 1982.
Yes, and I don't know if maybe you know the history if the Knoll brothers sold to Adobe or Photoshop, or because they show up on the splash screen, you know, on the little that has 10,000 names on it.
They got absorbed, and they wrote specific routines, algorithms that mostly modified, what you get from a scanner or what you get from a picture, and broke it into CMYK because they were originally only thinking about doing it for litho printing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put on my blog at tbiznetwork.com / whatever. It's Scott's blog. You'll see it on the homepage. A link to a couple of articles. You found an article. I found an article. And Adobe has like a 25-page PDF that you can download that shows pictures of I forget. I have to look it up here. John Warnock and Chuck. I guess it's Geschke.
Right.
Shows their picture, and they started in 1982, and blah blah blah. And who knew then? Anyway, I'll put that on my blog. But that's a happy birthday.
Fonts. They were a huge font company in the early days.
They were.
Yeah.
And they wrote, I don't know who wrote, whether Warnock wrote PostScript or who wrote PostScript, but that was the de facto standard for controlling all output devices, it seemed like.
Right.
All right, so happy birthday to you. That's it.
Can't sink too much of that, otherwise you have to pay royalties.
Oh my God! Did we do less than 8 bars right over there?
I think so. The Hill sisters have to get their money.
Right.
Last week we talked about calibrating tension meters. The only tension meter that I've ever owned have been the ones that I got from Stretch Devices, especially when I worked there. I contacted Mr. Newman and asked him about calibration. I prowled Stretch Devices website, and there's absolutely nothing about how they will recalibrate your ST, your Newman roller frame meter. So he wrote me back instantly. He says, of course, we're still calibrating meters, but they only calibrate their own meters, the ST meters. No matter how old it is, they'll recalibrate those for $84. So if you think that your meter is out of whack, or if you haven't used, haven't sent it back in for, let's say, 5 years, if you really want accuracy, you'll be amazed at how they do still. They will change. I know a lot of people have been calling for Mr. Newman to maybe do a digital meter, and he believes that the dial gives you a better you can actually see when the mesh stalls, which you just can't see with a digital tension meter. So I don't think they will ever make a digital tension meter.
Out of whack would be how much? I mean, a couple newtons? I mean, what would be like?
It's not going to be a problem for those people that only have 20 Newton screens, because the dial indicator, the meter turns so much down on the lower numbers.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, I'm getting a glare from the snow.
Yeah, that's okay. That's good.
But you get up there,
yeah.
And the difference between 20 and 30 is just, it's the same as from 12 to 15. So if you want to get into the higher tension meter, we're talking about a few 10,000ths of an inch difference, because it's, measuring the displacement that this 2.2 pound, this kilo weight makes a change in measurement. So you're right. If you're not going into the upper stratospheres of tension, if you're not in the 30s, let's say, but if you're going to close to where the mesh might break anyway, and you just happen to be 15 or 20% off, bing, that may be why you're popping mesh.
Yeah. So where do they send it? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you go to the Stretch Devices website, which is stretchdevices.com, and get the phone number there and call and say that you want an RMA. They want to know that Joe Bloke, you, Mr. Schmoodle, are sending back your meter, and they'll be waiting for it. They'll be expecting it. And that way you can track it because you have RMA number 2500 or something like that.
And you put in the package Richard Greaves sent me, and they go, who? The guy calibration goes, I don't know that guy. So.
Even though it's not on the website, I'm pointing my finger of shame. It's all they need is a single page. And again, I castigated Mr. Newman for the confusion between calibration and zeroing out the meter.
In the Tech Talk vein, I get this call probably once a week or an email saying, hey, you did a set for me 6 months ago and my computer crashed and I've lost it. And, okay, I don't mind. I go with my archives because I have my backups. If you looked at my desk, I've got a backup and a backup and a backup. And one of the backups is dead, by the way, which has got some files I need, but it died. I need to take it to – we have a guy called Data Doctors here that does repair work. But anyway, it always irritates me because I'm a religious backupper, and I'm thinking you are too, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you back up to the web, though. I mean, you back up to – or do you back up locally or both?
Well, I live in a house where there's 11 computers running at all times. My friend Gina, who runs her business out of the house, she has 4 different computers that are running all the time so that she has access to the internet at all times. And she has like 20, 30,000 photographs on her website where she sells hats. But those have to be backed up because those pictures, we don't ever want to take those pictures again. So I got her a 500 gigabyte backup hard drive that backs up. She backs it up to my server every night at 2 o'clock, or I reach into her computer and back it up into my server. So that's 2 right there. Then I have another 3 terabyte gigantic, it's actually much larger than the one that you just showed, a 3 terabyte Seagate that I bought on Amazon for like $102. $102 for 3 terabytes is amazing.
I think that's a Seagate.
Yeah. I like Seagates. The Barracuda drives have always been good to me, so that's what I've been buying lately. But I also back up all my stuff to Carbonite. Carbonite is $55 a year, and it was invented by a man whose daughter went off to college, and she wrecked her laptop or something like that, and she said, Dad, what am I going to do? Well, did you back up? No, and so he invented Carbonite. Now, the trouble is it takes a long time. Let's say that you have a terabyte of information. It could take 2 or 3 or 4 months over the internet to upload all that stuff. So it may be that, you know, it's great for grandma. Absolutely, grandmas need it.
Yeah.
But it may be that it's a little too small. But think of all the other free storage things that we can use. That you've got OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, and of course the big daddy Amazon Simple Storage Service, which is shortened down to Amazon S3. You use S3, don't you?
Yeah, I use it to serve my all my videos, and I put a lot of my stuff up there. But what's it cost per one of these? It's nothing. I think I paid $100, $125 for this thing. And now this is my car backup, because I have a philosophy that if I'm at Walmart and my house burns down, my website's okay because GoDaddy has that, and they do redundant backups. They rotate every 7 days, every night they back up my website, so I'm good there. But if my house burns down, I've lost all my color separation files, all my important stuff, and I put this in my car. So this was my Post-it note was refresh the car backup. So whenever I'm gone from home, I have a backup with me. And when I go and travel to Bowling Green in the summer, I put a backup in a barn behind my house. I've got a little barn there. That way, if the house burns down, you know. But so the point is that I'm religious about it, but I think a lot of my customers aren't, and I know a lot of people aren't. I know close friends that will say, "Oh, I lost my computer and lost all those photographs of my vacation." Did you do a backup? You know, to me, is beyond belief. That person, they'd probably grab the photo album, you know, that has the hard copies, you know, and save that and put that into a safe. But do they back up their computer? No. You know. So anyway.
Now I think that photographs, if we're talking about personal people, I don't want to go into that too much, but people that are running a screen printing operation, if you don't have your old art files, you're in huge trouble. You don't want to have to redo that work, and your customers trust you. So in a days when you can just send everything to the cloud, every photograph that you take, you can send up to the cloud, we're sort of forgetting about that. You can't do that when you're a screen printer.
No, some guys have. I thought I had a lot of files. When I do online sessions with some of my customers and they're trying to find the file that they're working on, my eyes glaze over with all the hundreds of folders, and it's all you can see, customers' names. And in those folders are subfolders. I mean, I bet some of them have just 10 or 20,000 from being in business for 20 years. You got to back that stuff up, I think.
Sure.
So anyway, it's just kind of a rant. We kind of evolved into a rant. But Tech Talk wise is go to Best Buy and buy well, you think you can get a 3 terabyte for now, probably $150 or
$102 on Amazon right now.
Yeah.
I'm a Prime member, so it would be delivered in 2 days for free.
Get one, and if you just do it weekly, so you've lost a few things. You know, you got to do a backup for sure.
Yeah. Hey,
next week you're going to go to Atlantic City. You're driving again, I guess, because you're from Detroit. You're driving to AC.
Again. Got actual plans to drive with Greg Kitson. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. He may fly instead, but that'll be fun. 10 hours in the car with Greg there and back.
You're going to then drive down to Greg to Decatur and then go from there? Or?
I think he's going to come to Cleveland. We'll all go from Pierre Namnishi's factory there. Leave on Thursday.
And Pierre will go with you or just?
No, Pierre's got the good car. He's got the Audi A6.
Oh, so Pierre's driving?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're riding?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
I'm lounging in the back seat with Kitson.
That's funny. You're talking shop. It'll be all. I'd like to put a recorder in that car. 3 screen print guys for 10 hours, or I don't know what it is.
We're taking Matt the screen maker also, so it'll be 4 people. Poor Matt will be ground into dust by the end of it. He'll just sit in the corner and shut up.
Listen, seriously though, I want a selfie of that. You have to stick a camera on the dash and just let it roll for a bit, just to show.
I got this my new clamp I bought for the phone.
Okay, you got to do that for sure. So that's AC is Atlantic City, March 13th to the 15th, and you're doing you're doing the seminar, the 15 ways to get
the geek variables, where Pierre and I do I'm the expert and he's the entrepreneur, the serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think you're going to get through the 15 this time. We know that. But you might get snow there. I mean, we've been
sure we
talking
will.
weather, but I remember many times in March in Atlantic City, snow on the boardwalk, which is nothing more beautiful than snow on the beach and all that. So anyway, I got a printers boot camp coming up March 22nd through the 24th in beautiful Bowling Green. I am praying there's no snow because I'm having to fly to Nashville, rent a car. And I'm a kid from Arizona. I don't drive on ice. If I see ice or even hear the word black ice, I pull over. Anyway, I don't understand that. And then DAX, of course, you were going to try and get your free steak at Kansas City, March 27th to the 28th at the DAX show. So anyway, so that's the trade show news for today, right? That was quick. So from the support logs, I got a real common question, but I mean, it was kind of interesting how they worded it. Is there any software that will fix a crappy JPEG? I think that was what the question was from one of my regular users, and I've written about it many times and done articles on it. But it's kind of a common theme. You know, if you people just take a great file and they save it as a quality of 2 JPEG, so it's small enough to email. You think we're doing us a favor, and then you open that file up, and you got those boxes everywhere and artifacts everywhere. So there's software out there that will clean it up. I'm going to show a little short video right now of a little routine that I wrote just using Photoshop filters. This is Photoshop, just using Photoshop filters, using the noise reduction filter, which has a checkbox, remove artifacts. And I'm going to show it to you right now, and it kind of covers a real quick, down and dirty way to improve. The word fix is kind of a gray area because fixing for some is impossible, but to improve a low quality JPEG. Hey guys, Scott Fresner here with T-Biz Network. I want to talk to you about how to fix a low quality JPEG file. I suppose the word fix means how to improve a low quality JPEG file. Now this is a piece of clip art. This is a standard 300 dpi file that's been saved as a PNG. If I zoom in on it, you can see that it's nice and smooth and clean, smooth gradations. Pretty clean file. I saved the same file as a quality of 1 JPEG. Now this is the save file, quality of 1. Looks very similar zoomed out, but when we start zooming in, we see all these things that I call the boxes, these little squares, and little things called artifacts. These little guys here, these little glows and halos, little dots are called artifacts. Now from a distance, again, you can't see it, and I often get files like this to color separate, and I tell the customer, please zoom in on these files and see what they really look like, because the problem as a color separator is all of these little things here want to separate. These actually show up as different colors. I've got different shades of red, I've got different shades here, different tones, and if I'm going to try and color separate this, I'm going to see all this stuff. So there's ways you can clean this up, and I'm going to give you a couple of quick tips. First of all, you can use filters in Photoshop to help clean these things up. Let's zoom in. I'm going to go to the filter pull-down menu, come down to noise, and come down to despeckle. I'm going to click on that, and so you're going to see it soften slightly. Click, and you saw it soften just a hair. That's the first step you could do. The second step would be go to filter, noise, and reduce noise, and it brings up the reduce noise window. And I like to leave the settings at about 20 for the reduce color noise and sharpen about 15. You can change these and make sure that you have checked remove JPEG artifact. And now we can uncheck preview and check preview. Uncheck and check. And you got to watch close. Watch this area right here and you'll see it. That's with the effect applied, and I can actually reduce the color noise more. That's with it off, on, off, on. And you can see it softens the image a little bit. I'd be much happier with it softer than I would be with it having all these artifacts, because artifacts like this want to separate, and I'd rather go for a hair softer file than have to try and separate a file and have all these colors show up. Because if I look at the RGB, one of these is the offender. I'm going to go back to the original version of this. There's the red, the green, the blue, and you can really see this stuff now. Now, a second way of softening a file or improving a low quality JPEG is go to filter, come down to blur, and go to Gaussian blur. And I'm going to just blur just the blue channel. I'm going to blur the most offending channel. I could blur them all, but sometimes just blurring one will help the whole thing appear better. I'm just going to soften that slightly. And I'll say OK. And now when I put the eyes back on and zoom in, they're still there. I might come and do the green. Let's go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. You want to get kind of just past that boxiness. Soften that. And now take a look at the entire file put together. And there we have. We still have some problems down here, but I've improved a low-quality JPEG file. So you can see that using just a couple of Photoshop filters, Gaussian blur, using the noise reduction, you can clean things up. There's third-party software out there that does this too, but I usually do that. And this is all built into TSEPs, by the way, as my blatant plug. If there's a checkbox in TSEPs, improve low-quality JPEG. But if that thing is 2 inches by 2 inches and it's 72 dpi and has to be blown up, there's nothing that's going to help that thing be sharper. It may help remove artifacts and those boxes you get, but nothing's going to help the thing be sharper short of rebuilding it.
My rant for this week is an old one. A couple of times in the last month, I've actually talked about, with clients, the idea of counting in dozens. I have no clue where counting in dozens ever came from, where these are not eggs. No printer in the universe has ever printed a dozen shirts. You can only print one shirt at a time. Now, when I wrote for Screen Printing Magazine back in 1987, I wrote an article called The Dirty Dozen. And this is a two-part idea that if you have a stack of shirts at the end of the belt, and there are 17 bundles of printer's fold, and maybe say 6 other shirts that are loose, how many shirts do you have? Quick, everybody.
I love it. You're good. Anyone?
210. Didn't you know 210?
Bueller?
You have 17 dozen and 6 shirts. How many shirts is that? You people go out and get your calculators. But if you worked at my shops, we stacked the shirts in tens. And thus, if you had a stacks of tens and you saw 17 bundles and 6 extra shirts, that would be how many? 176 shirts. It'll only take you a second to do that kind of mathematics. This was a tie-in to a rule that I got from my old boss, Cy Cohen, back at Eder Manufacturing in my earliest days of screen printing. And that is that we had ASI customers that somehow, sometimes, debated whether or not we'd ship them all the shirts they were supposed to get. I'm sure this has never happened to you, Scott, but I'm sure that it's happened to every person listening to this, that you ship something out and they say they didn't get all their mediums. Well, we had this happen once, and Cy came up with a rule that we would pack every size with the same number of shirts in each box. So, for instance, larges, there would be 70 shirts in a box. And then, of course, there's always going to be a remainder. But the idea was that all the boxes with larges in them would be the same weight. And all the boxes with smalls would be the same weight. And when you had 4 boxes of smalls, 6 boxes of larges, 10 boxes of mediums, or whatever your breakdown is, that you'd have some recourse, because once you shipped them, you could never go back and say, well, I know we counted them correctly. Then there was also a remainder box that would have slip sheets in it. So you'd have the remainder of the mediums, a slip sheet, the remainders of the larges, and a slip sheet, and the remainder of all the rest of the shirts with slip sheets in between them. Now, this was a little more tedious for the boxing people, but that's what they got paid for. And we never had a problem again. I'm going to put the entire text of my column from 1987 in the show notes.
But do you think this ever caught on with anybody? I mean, being just...
Oh, never did, no. No one but me. And in my life after Eder Manufacturing and at Eder Manufacturing, it only took us a little while to quickly go over. And believe me, number counting problems just went down. Even the shirts that came over from the warehouse, Sam Cushionary would send them over in tens, not in dozens.
Well, it makes sense, because how many, like you said earlier, I mean, you'll think about it. How many dozen is that? And you take the calculator. Whereas with tens, it's like easy, quick math, So I
Metric, baby.
Maybe it'll catch on.
No, I am not holding my breath. When you're at a trade show, Don't let those pesky salesmen bamboozle you with dozens either. I have no clue what 70 or 80 dozen an hour is. I don't even want to think about the math. This takes me back to second grade. I don't want to get out a calculator. Nobody knows what 17 and 7/12 dozen is. It's happily 210 shirts or 211 shirts because I added one shirt on there. These are things that you shouldn't get bamboozled into. Everybody knows what 400 shirts an hour is or 600 shirts an hour, but nobody knows what 80 dozen shirts an hour is. That's it. Steam is coming off of the table.
You know, I don't. I ship product, but not a lot of big product anymore because I ship DVDs and try not to even do that. But I kind of miss, and I'm sure my wife, who handles our shipping, knows that UPS had gone to dimensional weight, and explain that to them.
What's all this about dimensional weight? It used to be that there was a break-even point with UPS that, you know, you get charged the weight if the box was not too big. But now, even boxes as small as 14 by 14 by 14, it goes with dimensional weight. So if you're shipping something like T-shirts, it's not going to be that bad because they're actually very heavy. Ink is not going to change. But, of course, my girlfriend's business, which is custom hats, a box that may be 20 by 20 by 20 only weighs 6 pounds. It's Kentucky Derby season coming up. So these boxes are shipping for $40 and $50.
Away.
And we've just watched shipping go through the roof.
Wow.
And so since the first of the year, we're shipping everything U.S. mail.
We do a lot of that, actually, because it's almost cheaper. You can do the express mail and the little pack and the medium mail.
We don't use the packs because those things are flat rates. I don't like the flat rate stuff.
Yeah. But I think
you would because of your books and stuff.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys have gone to using regular mail for stuff like that. Remember the days you go to the airport and you could actually check your entire car if you tip the curbside guy. I remember going once to a trade show when I must have had 20 boxes of it's heavy boxes of catalogs, and the booth, a portable booth, probably had 30 pieces and tipped the guy like $100 curbside, and he could get it on a plane. And you told me a story. You used to travel pretty heavy with screen frames from Newman Roller and tools and.
When I worked for Stretch Devices, I typically carried 8 bags, and I would you have to get to the airport early, and unless I was flying United because they weren't able to be bribed, I'd unload them all a little bit farther away, and I'd say, I know that 3 is the limit, but I heard that you could actually help me get all these onto the plane, and I'd be unrolling my $20 bills, and, you know, for about $50 instead of, you know, $280 or whatever the rates used to be. But this all changed with the first Gulf War, and we all went to the European strict. Every bag had to be absolutely checked. You kids won't understand the good old days we had pre-2000.
It was a heartbreaker. And even though the bag weight used to be 75 pounds, and you could fit a lot. You could fit a lot in the bag. Now it's 50 pounds, and I struggle. Oh my God! I get on the scale and it's 49. I mean, 75 you could, because you and I both done a lot of consulting, and you do travel with your props. And I remember going to Mauritius where I had, I had Newmans and I had tools and I had squeegees, and I had to go 30-hour flight. I even took my keyboard with me so I could be there for a month. And boy, then 75 pounds, and if you were going overseas, you could actually, I think, do more because you could do, I think, 2 bags. Or 3 bags, whereas in the U.S. you couldn't. But anyway, those days are gone. It's all changed.
My last big airplane fracas is going to Berlin in, 2006 or 7 for FESPA, and I flew in on Lufthansa because I came in through Lufthansa and I had no trouble. But I flew back on Delta, and their weight limit was like 20 pounds less.
Right.
And so imagine me in the busy Berlin airport, the Tegel airport, with my big yellow suitcase, shifting things into my naps.
I hate that.
And then I remember getting it. Okay, going to the this is before I had a stroke, but okay, got to go through the bag now. Okay, stand up, get into the airplane, and drag it off. Help me get this up because I had all the tools and all the heavy stuff I had, so that my suitcase could go through.
That's so funny.
Okay, the olden days.
I get a lot of news releases, new products. People send me releases for the TBiz website, but most of it's about so-and-so's having an open house and so-and-so's tweaked and put one more screw in their machine, and now it's a new product release. You know, I was good at that, and I'm not throwing stones, but Ben and David at Lawson, they were great at always sending out a release. Because you worked for me, you probably knew they probably had that mantra: send a release every month, Richard. You know, we painted it pink rather than light pink, you know, and send it out. So those guys were great.
The magazines need press releases. They'll print almost anything, which is good for manufacturers.
They have to fill the space between the ads. I always tell people. And they got to fill it with something. So as a blatant plug, I'm going to hopefully roll out my TSEPS TRIP 2.0 this week. That's an update, has a few fixes and stuff. Has a new wizard for adjusting ink density, checking your films if you're going to print all black, and so it's TRIP 2.0. I've been promising the update for 6 months, but that's not on Scott time. Scott time, it was always, can we do this in a week? You know, so I'm way over Scott time.
But you don't have the staff like you used to.
Yes, I'm a staff of one.
It's book time. Book of the week from last week. Stencil Making, Technical Fundamentals. It's available now from Eric Klein. I gave you his email address. It'll be in the show notes, this email address too. Since I looked at it a lot closer, I didn't notice. I've been reading these books for almost 30 years. And the original was called The Technical Fundamentals of Screen Making. And the new one, the one that you really should download and read, is Stencil Making, The Fundamentals.
The same book? It's the same book under the hood?
No, I'd like.
Oh.
It's Sandra Paskins. It's about the same subject. The 2001 Millennium version is definitely an improvement.
Oh.
It is a much better book. I think that if you want copies of the Black Book, you can always get them. But you must, in your screen making department, download a copy. Get a copy from Eric Klein at Sati. Get a PDF version and make all your screen makers read them. No excuses. My other book for this week is Ogilvy on Advertising.
What did we say the copyright date of that was? I think you looked it up, or did you?
1983.
Okay, because I've read it a long time.
I originally had heard about David Ogilvy from my parents or something like that, and I had read his original book, Confessions of an Advertising Man, which is more of a biography. It isn't about advertising. His work fascinated me. He was a man who used to work in a restaurant, and you know from my other book reviews, especially a couple of weeks ago, that he learned discipline working in a French hotel, and he's English. And then he decided that he was going to move to Pennsylvania, became a tobacco farmer for a while. And in England, where he came from originally, he used to sell stoves, what they call cookers, in England for the gas companies. And then he decided to open up an advertising agency.
This guy is the ultimate entrepreneur. I knew his history, though.
So I love the book Confessions of an Advertising Man, but I think both books should be read by people that are interested in dealing with creative ideas and creative people. Now, Ogilvy himself doesn't like the word creatives, which you hear on Mad Men a lot. And you'll hear Ogilvy's name bandied about on Mad Men, especially since that's going to start in April again, the final season of that, as I just throw that in. But dealing with creatives can be a challenge, or it can be very fulfilling. And if you read the book thinking, when you see the word advertising and how they advertise, such as in print advertising or in television advertising, think internet advertising and social media. They're all the same thing. But also think the creatives that need to create artwork. He talks once in Ogilvy on Advertising about how 90% of the people that work at advertising agents are billing clerks and people that actually do the work, the typesetting or the other things that are not creative. There are very few actual creative people that are working in the advertising business. And when you deal with them, they're the magic makers. They're the ones with the big ideas. And everything that he talks about in advertising, you should be thinking about when you're thinking about your screen printing. You can buy used copies of both those books on Amazon, very inexpensive. Or if you know anybody that might have a copy on PDF because it fell into their scanner, you might be able to get a PDF copy.
Are they out of print? I mean, you said
they're out of print, but there are, there's dozens of them all over Amazon. Now, I'm also a big believer in the auto tapes. Literally, the last two men that I've talked to on the phone, They love it when I recommend these books, but Richard, I really hate to read. I fall asleep too quickly. And so Ogilvy on Advertising and the Confessions of an Advertising Man are available, but only in cassette. It is I do not know of a place where you can get it in CD. So you got to get it in cassette. But that's why I have a van with a cassette player in it for my long trips.
Two good books, though. I mean, those are really good. And I read the one years and years ago, and I credit some of my marketing chops with reading books like that. They really inspire you, to know, give you ideas and stuff. Hey, that's our show for this week. Hope you enjoyed watching us. Richard's got to go shovel some more snow. I'm going to go for a bike ride later on the day in sunny Arizona. And
don't you have to rake some leaves or something?
Yeah, I may have to do that. Maybe whatever. So anyway, see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.